This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
They come to the 8th ball, and California Chrome is absolutely sensational. California Chrome shines bright in the Kentucky Derby.
Will take charges surging, and it's a photo finish. It's too close to call.
African Story wins the Dubai World Cup.
Macho Man!
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Monday morning, the Monday after Triple Crown attempt, and we'll be talking plenty of Belmont Stakes action and Belmont undercard action as well as the week progresses. A little bit later on in the show, towards the end of the show, Rich Glazier from Delaware Park will also get some thoughts on Delaware for this afternoon, but I'm sure Rich has some thoughts on the Belmont Stakes as well. Mike Penna from the Horse Racing Radio Network will go over some of the action with us. But first up, it is Pat Cummings from Trackist. Pat was at the track this weekend. Saw him up in the press box, and he has had some international travels over the last few weeks. And I've said, Pat, I want you on to talk about some of the international racing. And he said, well, I'm leaving for Ascot on Tuesday. So I said, well, we'll get you in on Monday. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning, Seth. Yeah, you caught me at a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're all envious of your travels there and whatnot. But, Pat, why don't we start out, because I want to get some of your thoughts, obviously, on Belmont Stakes weekend. But why don't we start out going back to your travels to Singapore. Some nice racing out there. If people don't follow racing internationally and in Asia, nice racing in Singapore. And a couple of weeks ago, it was the Singapore International Airlines Cup. We're going to watch the stretch run here, Pat. Dan Excel is going to get it done. And this is a horse that over there in Asia has been very, very competitive at the highest level, just maybe a little camera shy as far as wins. But boy, in that Singapore International Airlines Cup, a pretty nice win by Dan Excel.
Yeah, and I'm sure enough actually going to find a way to tie this into the Breeders' Cup here in a second. But Dan Excel absolutely is a horse who, I mean, you nailed it exactly right. He just doesn't often end up in the number one box all that often. But he did here. He had an absolutely perfect trip. One of the horses I really had liked in this race was the eventual second placer, Smoking Sun, who covered an interminable amount of extra ground relative to Dan Excel. I mean, it was really a case of two trips. Now, the thing about this race is that Smoking Sun, who runs second, had run fourth earlier this year in the Prix Gannet at Longchamp, where he was beaten about 6 lengths by Cirrus des Aigues and Trev, two of the best horses in the world. It was the only time Trev had ever been beaten. So to have that horse come to Singapore really out of his element and run as good as he did, I thought was a real big boost to some of the top European horses. Dan Excel, he'd take nothing away from him. Just 2 weeks before this effort, Seth, he had run in the Champions Mile at Sha Tin in Hong Kong. He finished third. He was beaten about 4 or 5 lengths. Why is this important? The horse who was second is relatively known as the best miler in Hong Kong, but the winner was the horse who won the Godolphin Mile in Dubai earlier this year, a horse by the name of Variety Club. And Variety Club, who beats Dan Excel by 4 or 5 lengths in Hong Kong, Dan Excel comes back and wins the Singapore Cup very impressively. Guess what Variety Club's late season goal is? The Breeders' Cup Mile. So what we got here was an impressive performance by Dan Excel, form franking from Hong Kong, and the horse who beat him handily in Hong Kong just 2 weeks before is aimed at taking down probably Wise Dan, but he is on a mission. He's a 2-time South African Horse of the Year. So it's kind of funny how these things go, and there's little ties into all different areas of the globe around these Asian races, and I think we could see it end up impacting the Breeders' Cup at the end of the year. Variety Club, if you can get on them in Vegas when the numbers first go up, Variety Club to win the Breeders' Cup Mile, you probably heard it here first.
Very good. We like that. And you're right. I think Even people who follow international racing probably mostly point towards what happens in Europe. And of course, Ascot coming up, as noted, next week. That will attract a lot of attention this past weekend, obviously. With our Triple Crown, I think the Epsom Derby went a little under the radar, but Aidan O'Brien has a very nice one now with Australia. You mentioned Cirrus Douglas, who won the Coronation Cup, pulled up lame, but the latest word today seems pretty good there. But that said, as I say, a lot of people maybe point to Europe. A lot of good, very good, high-quality international racing. Australia, Hong Kong, and as noted, Singapore. Talk a little bit about Singapore racing. And one of the things I noted, seeing David Flores' name in the results, he moved his tack over there. How's he performing?
Yeah, he's about 8th in the standings overall, Seth, and is really the only American-based jockey who has moved his tack to Singapore right now. He follows a line of a couple other Americans who have given it a shot in Singapore. But look, he's doing just fine. Has a couple stakes wins to his credit. The racing is very American-friendly. It's turf, it's poly track, and I really hope that I know they're continuing to look and pursue the potential of exporting that signal to America. I think it would be a lot of fun if they did, because it's the same horses week after week after week. There's only about 15 horses there, 1,500 horses in the jurisdiction, and they pretty much only race there. So it would be exciting if that moved over to America.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, folks aren't paying attention to Asia and Australia. Shift your attention a little bit, because as you note, you can tie through some of these races, and you may have some horses that'll show up in the Breeders' Cup, and we can get a little jump on that. And next week, Ascot, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, so begins on June 17th, and 5 consecutive days. First post time around, I want to say, 9 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. The first day is the biggest day. It's a bit like the Daytona 500, that the first race of the NASCAR season is the biggest race. The first day of Royal Ascot is also the biggest race. I think they start off with 3 consecutive Group 1 races. The race I'm most looking forward to is the King's Stand Stakes at 5 furlongs on opening day, straight down the pike, so to speak, a dash for cash. And the horse that I think is probably going to get a little overlooked this year is the horse who was the favorite last year, and that's the South African superstar, Shay Shay. He's 6-1 in the early trading right now over in the UK. But if you're looking for a horse on opening day at Ascot to bet, Shay Shay to me is going to be the one. He's actually been pointed to peak in this race. Whereas last year it was kind of like after his long Dubai campaign. He only had 2 starts in Dubai with a focus on getting a top effort from him out of him in this race. I think Shay Shay is really the one to focus on there. There's 4 Wesley Ward runners, all youngsters, that are expected to go over and represent America. Rosalind is expected to go over for Ken McPeak to run in one of the Philly Stakes. I will say this, that the Wesley Ward horse that attracts my attention most is the 2-year-old by Quality Road named Hootenanny, who was a very impressive winner on debut at Keeneland. And what caught me about his performance, and this kind of goes to the track estate, is we looked into finding horses who were on the lead or within 2 lengths of the lead, winning on a 4.5 furlong debut at Keeneland on that poly track, and ran their final quarter mile faster than their first quarter mile. And I was watching the race, and I thought, gosh, this looks like a really impressive performance, because he was on the lead, or actually was just off the lead, and pulled away. And sure enough, he did run his second or his final quarter faster than his first quarter. And I looked to see what other horses in the history of Trackas at Keeneland who had done the same thing. And it was Judy the Beauty, a stakes-placed runner in Holden Bullets, and there was one other whose name is escaping me, but it was another Wesley Ward stakes winner. And to me, I thought that was a really good sign. So Hootenanny ran at Pimlico on that kind of a sealed track that was drying out on the Black-Eyed Susan undercard. I don't think he really liked it. And Wesley Ward said it was probably a stupid decision to run there, but I think he's going to be better on the turf, and he's fast. So Hootenanny is really the horse to watch, and I think he might be running on the first day of the Royal meeting.
Okay, you've given us a couple there, and you also mentioned Trev before, and I think Trev will is confirmed now for one of those races at Royal Ascot as well. So you've got a good lineup ahead of you at Royal Ascot. Pat, before we let you go, we have a few more minutes left, but I do want to go back to the weekend as well and get some of your thoughts. As I say, I ran into you in the press box over the few days that we were down there, and so you got to enjoy all of the action, and it was a spectacular card on Saturday. Let's start out with the highlight of it. We've got the stretch run here of the Belmont Stakes. While we talk, we will watch Tonalist and Commissioner kind of duke it out. You know, at about midway down the stretch, California Chrome, to me, was right in the thick of things and stood a chance of winning the whole enchilada there with the Triple Crown, and then just kind of maybe hung a little bit. Maybe it was a reaction to the hoof. Andy Byers' column today took a little shot at Victor Espinoza being placed down inside. That may not be where the horse wants to be, and that's where he was on the backstretch, probably getting some dirt kicked in the face. So, you know, as I say, though, about mid-stretch looked like he was in a pretty good position, but it does turn out to be Tonalist over Commissioner in a head decision under the wire. What were your thoughts of the Belmont Stakes?
I agree with Andy Byers' assessment, and I wrote about this for America's Best Racing actually the week before the race. I made it very clear that California Chrome, especially coming from a Trackus opinion, he's a horse that should be covering extra ground. His best performances have come in the clear when he's out in the middle of the track or with no horses in front of him. And the first half mile of the race, he actually endured kickback, which he hadn't done at all since Breeders' Cup weekend when he ran in the Golden State Juvenile to a rather even and dull sixth-place finish. And you watch his action in the first turn of that race from November, compare it to his action from the Belmont Stakes, and I thought when they had about a mile left to run in the race, it was going to be very difficult for him to win from there. Where Steve Coburn was wrong in his comments, and he did go on Good Morning America today and really issue an apology for some of the crazy things he was saying.
Good.
I think Coburn was wrong in saying that no one else is going to win the Triple Crown. His horse was a length and three-quarters away from doing it. Real Quiet was a nose away from doing it in 97. Smarty Jones was a length and a half away from doing it. It is going to happen. And I really do believe that if Victor Espinoza had just said, come and catch me, and run 24, 47, 112, he probably would have won the race. I really do believe that. I think that was possible. Now, all that being said, not enough credit is going to Tonalist. Tonalist stuck out on our data, and we had blogged about this for America's Best Racing back in February. In the history of a mile and eighth races that the Trackus has tracked at Gulfstream, that dates back to December of 2011. It's about 150 races. Tonalist was one of only three horses who did two things. They covered the most ground and won, and they also closed more than 4 lengths off the pace after the first half mile. So he covered extra ground with those long turns for you.
Oop, I think we lost Pat. Pat disappeared. We'll give it a shot to reconnect with Pat, and in the meantime, I will reassert what I said earlier on the handicappers report, because I haven't had a chance to say it here on this show. But one of the races that floated under the radar for us a little bit here, not only the undercard of the Triple Crown races, you know, Palace Malice and Close Hatches maybe float under the radar, but the Epsom Derby on Saturday over in England with Australia, who is shaping up to be a very nice horse, got a performance rating of 123 from the BHA. That puts this horse with the same rating as Sea the Stars. Aidan O'Brien is very, very high on Australia. And again, Cirrus Douglas won the Coronation Cup on Saturday as well. Pulled up lame, but the latest word, the word today, was that it doesn't seem to be serious. We'll see, but the latest word was that he was all right. So again, we'll keep our fingers crossed there, because he's a top class international runner. And checking now to see if we have Pat back on the line. Yes.
Thanks.
There we go. Pat's back on the line. So, Pat, complete your thoughts on Tonalist.
Yeah, so I was saying, Seth, he showed so much promise. I actually backed him in the Kentucky Derby Futures and was really disappointed to have not seen him get in to the race. But what I think needs to go said, this was his 5th lifetime start. He covered the most ground in the race by far. I thought it was a really impressive effort from Tonalist, and I don't think this is going to be one of those years where we see the Belmont winner not do a whole lot going forward. There have been plenty of those over the past couple of years. Drosselmeyer and Palace Malice are 2 exceptions, but Summer Bird being another. But you go back to quite a few of the previous Belmonts, I don't think Tonalist is going to fit into the ranks of the Tataras. I think this was a good effort. I think he's a very good horse. Props to Christophe Clement, much deserved.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was a nice race also from Commissioner. He certainly had the Belmont breeding there going for him. I kind of crapped out. I like Right on Curl and Commanding Curve, Wicked Strong underneath California Chrome. So my opinion just was Tonalist was the horse, though, that I must admit I left out of the mix that worried me the most. So I wasn't shocked, obviously, when it happened. But let's talk a little bit more and get some opinions on at least a couple of the other races. How about Palace Malice in the Met Mile?
Yeah, phenomenal ride. Really just patience, I think, was the key there for Mike Smith. Patience, finding the holes. To win from gate 1 in that race, I think, was always going to be a challenge, especially since he doesn't always go forward. But I think there's a greater statement here, Seth, that maybe the parking debacle and the Long Island Railroad debacle aside, Naira built it, and they came. And to have a race like that, 2 races away from the Belmont on a Triple Crown day, some would say, oh, it may have gotten lost in the shuffle. Not at all. That race stood out. The Woody Stevens was phenomenal. The Just a Game was a great run from Coffee Click. The Manhattan, we finally saw Real Solution get over the top, first past the post, so to speak, in America. The handle was just off the charts. $150 million. It was a great day of racing that really rivaled nothing else I think we've seen. The undercard on Belmont Stakes Day this year was probably the best undercard of a Triple Crown race in the history of Triple Crown races in America. And Martin Panza, Frank Gabriel, Naira, that whole team down there, they really kind of put themselves on the line by shifting the schedule around as they did. And frankly, I think they were well rewarded by doing so.
Yeah, it was absolutely a great, great day of racing. And I think that was reflected. You and I were up in the press box, and it was packed on Saturday. It was not just national coverage. There were international folks there as well. And so they got to see some great racing on the undercard and maybe get introduced to some very nice American horses as well. And as you know, a lot of people worry about it flying under the radar, not with real racing fans. I mean, we all look and realize Palace Malice, the Bayern performance, Close Hatches, those were all performances that people will be talking about all week long. Pat, as always, we appreciate the visit. Pat Cummings from Trackus, and certainly we wish you a safe trip over to Royal Ascot. Maybe we'll catch up with you on your return from there.
Appreciate it. All the best, everybody, and good luck going forward.
Thanks a lot. Pat Cummings from Trackus. We'll take our next break. Mike Penna from the Horse Racing Radio Network. Stay tuned.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
I got it. Watch me. I got it. Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got a move that tells me what to do. If you don't, brothers and sisters, then you won't know what it's all about.
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the King of the Hill on June 14th. So sign up today, online at CapitalOTB.com, or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
I'm Jeff Carl. Join me Saturdays and Sundays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the weekend in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekends at 9, only here on the OTB TV network.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Very happy to be joined now by Mike Penn of the Horse Racing Radio Network. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, Seth. Good morning.
Happy to have you on board. Happy to see you over the weekend at Belmont Park. It was like old home week there up in the press box, seeing a lot of people that we normally see up at Saratoga and whatnot, so it was a lot of fun. Before we get into some of the conversation about the weekend, I always like to give you a chance so people can go back and catch some things on the archive that you had up last week. And I noted last week you had an interview with Tom Durkin.
Yeah, Tom Durkin was nice enough to spend a little time with us. Of course, he was calling his final Belmont Stakes, was hoping to go out with a Triple Crown winner. Of course, as we all know, that didn't happen. But, you know, Tom's been the voice of the New York Racing Association since about 1990, I think was his first year calling races, replacing Marshall Cassidy. And he talked about that, and he talked about so many of the moments in his life and so many of the different things that he's gone through. It was a lot of fun, and that interview is back on our website at horseracingradio.net.
Yeah, I admit I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm certainly going to pick it up because I've had on Tom before, and he's a guy, raconteur, I would say. You get him started, he's got a million great stories from throughout his career, and he's fun to listen to. And now that he's in the home stretch of the race calling career, certainly worth picking up. And again, folks can find that on that Horse Racing Radio Network website. Mike, before we get into specific races, just give me some of your overall thoughts. My personal opinion was, there was certainly some getting out of the parking lot issues at the end of the day, and I guess folks getting on the train had some problems. But boy, you look at the day itself, beautiful weather, a great crowd, and as you walk through the crowd, everybody seemed to be having a good time. Obviously, the Belmont result took a little of the wind out of the sails, but I think overall, great card, lots of betting, TV ratings were good, and the racing was phenomenal. What were your thoughts on the day?
Yeah, and even for us, we've never had a broadcast surpass the Kentucky Derby in terms of the number of visits that we've seen coming to our website from all over the world, and this is the first time that that's happened. Our Derby numbers were up over what they've been in the past. They were sensational this year, and then the Triple Crown numbers going into Saturday, or coming out of Saturday, were absolutely huge for us. So there was a ton of interest, not just across the country, but worldwide, which I thought was kind of neat to see. So many people hoping that he would be able to pull it off. I did like the big race day. We found that in the sport that those Super Saturdays, as they like to call them, tend to work because we get an awful lot of people coming out to the races. The field sizes are usually pretty good, just as they were on Saturday. And look, when you put up that kind of money, the way Naira did for those stakes races on Saturday afternoon, and you run those types of prestigious races, you're going to get the best horses and the best product that racing has, and you're going to put that on the court, so to speak, or on the track. And that's something that people like to see, and people will turn out for it. They will bet on it. And we're seeing that the proof's in the pudding because all the numbers were up. Yeah,
that's phenomenal that your numbers were higher than the Derby, and I think that shows the interest that this horse and his team had. And the word that I've gotten is that Steve Coburn did issue a mea culpa today on Good Morning America, so hats off to him. That put a little bit of a damper on the day, a minute after the race, taking the shot he did, and then he doubled down yesterday. But I think somebody got to him and got him back to his good senses, because the word is, he's issued an apology today, which was the right move to make. But other than that, I think the day was just absolutely phenomenal. As I say, to hear you guys say your numbers were better than you've done in the Derby just indicates how much fan interest this attracted. Let's take a look at the Belmont Stakes now. We'll catch them coming right out of the gate, Mike. Tonalist number 11 will win. Number 8 Commissioner runs second. Number 1 Medal Count third, and then it's a dead heat between 2 and 9 California Chrome and Wicked Strong. And Mike, over the last few days, there's been some conversation, and I have it taped, but I haven't yet watched the NBC broadcast. But I guess Randy Moss and Jerry Bailey debated a little bit after the race. Randy Moss thought maybe it was not the best ride by Victor Espinoza. Bailey defended him a little bit, but since then, Andy Beyer has come out with a column saying that the horse probably is a little bit better. And I guess this is Moss's thought too. He's better on the outside. So when Victor Espinoza chose not to go up and take the lead, he was then stuck in a position behind horses, which may just not be mentally California Chrome's best spot. So there were some knocks on Espinoza, but you can't take anything away from Tonalist in what was his 5th career start, getting it done in the Belmont Stakes. So your overall thoughts?
Yeah, Tonalist ran huge, and I did actually see that debate between Randy Moss and Jerry Bailey. And you're right, Jerry did kind of stick with Victor. He couldn't criticize him for the decision that he made early in the race to stay on the rail and to stay in behind horses. He did have an opportunity, and I actually thought, of course, our broadcast position was right up above the press box on the very top floor of Belmont, looking straight down at the finish line. And as they came by us, it looked as if Victor had that opportunity, and it looked like he was going to send him right on through and go right to the front. Of course, as we know, he didn't do that. He then, by the time they got to the backstretch, was trapped in behind horses and down toward the inside. Now, with that being said, Alan Sherman had told me before the Preakness Stakes that they feel as if he's at his best, California Chrome is at his best, when he does have a target to run at. So that could have been part of the thinking on Victor's part as well. Let's let a couple of horses stay in front of him, and let's see if I can get him to relax so he does have that target. I think that, looking back on it, Monday morning quarterback, hindsight being 20/20, if he did go to the front with him, obviously the horse probably settles even a little bit better because he didn't look completely comfortable going up the backside down toward the rail, getting that dirt kicked in his face. He probably settles a little bit better. Would it have made a difference? Who knows? It very well could have, but then again, maybe it didn't. The one thing that I come back to is that California Chrome just didn't have that acceleration that we're used to seeing him have at the top of the stretch. And Seth, I did multiple interviews throughout the week leading up to the Belmont. And I told several people that, to me, that was the key. If he could have that same kick going 1.5 miles that he had going 1.25 miles and the same distance in the Preakness Stakes, the shorter distance, if he could have that same kick, then he would be very dangerous. But we didn't see that kick from him at the top of the stretch. He just looked like, as Victor said, maybe the campaign got to him and he was a tired horse.
Yeah, and we just saw the stretch run there, and as I said earlier, about midway through the stretch, he was right there. You thought he might get that acceleration and go by, but then just kind of hung a little bit. And we also have to note, while we're talking about this, obviously we saw earlier on the Handicappers Report, we showed the photo. He did grab a quarter. That certainly could have played into it as well.
I think so. Yeah, it was superficial, so it wasn't anything that was going to be seriously affecting him. But who knows? We're not California Chrome. We don't know what that felt like, and maybe that was aggravating him. It's like, I guess, a marathoner, if he were to develop a cut on the back of his heel during the running of the race or at the beginning of the race, is that something that bothers you throughout the running? Who knows? Maybe that had an effect on it. Maybe it didn't. But for whatever reason, maybe he was just a tired horse. Maybe that had something to do with it. He just wasn't the same California Chrome that we're used to seeing. And Victor did say that once he came out of the gate, he knew very early that he wasn't sitting on the same horse that he was aboard in the Derby and the Preakness. So, again, for whatever reason, as we say often, these horses are not machines, and it is so difficult to win those 3 races and consecutively the way you're supposed to win the Triple Crown. It's just an amazing accomplishment, and the horses that have pulled it off have been very special horses, and it just wasn't meant to be for California Chrome.
Yeah, and as I say, Steve Coburn's post-race comments were unfortunate, but maybe more unfortunate to me was Art Sherman saying, we're going to give the horse some rest, which kind of precludes a trip to the Travers. Being Southern California based, I don't know what our chances of that happening were anyway, but boy, that would have been a great showdown as well, because you have to think Christophe Clement being a New York-based guy, you would assume Tonalist will show up, and Pletcher will come, obviously, with his contingent, which you would assume would include Commissioner. but I would love to have a rematch. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but that's the day and age we're in. He's had a number of races already, had a long campaign this year, and it looks like the game plan now is, a point to the Breeders' Cup. So probably we won't see him back until late summer, early fall, something like that, which is a little bit unfortunate, but that's the way the game's played now.
Yeah, and I think it's probably the right move for the horse. I mean, when you look at what he's had to do throughout this particular run that he's been on, even going back to the early part of the spring, he has really been in training and he's been racing nonstop. He hasn't had a break. So this is not a bad thing. You turn him out for 60 days or whatever it is and just let him be a horse, and then let that superficial wound heal up from when he grabbed a quarter, and then just let him come back and be at the top of his game when the Breeders' Cup rolls around. I think that'll still generate a lot of excitement. Obviously, he's captured the hearts of a lot of people in the sport and outside of the sport. So you want him to come back to 110%, and I know that Art's going to do what's right for the horse.
And I will note this, as you said, he captured the hearts of a lot of people. After the race, they unsaddled him and they walk him back through the tunnel. If folks watch the broadcast, you see him come out from the paddock through the tunnel at Belmont to get onto the track. They walk him right back through that tunnel after the race. And as he walked through the tunnel, the crowd gave him an ovation after the race as well, which I think shows the affection they had for the horse, certainly. And as you say, that's good for the sport. And if he comes back and is still racing at a high level, that'll be certainly a bonus going into the Breeders' Cup also. But speaking of horses racing at a high level, let's talk about some of the undercard races. And first up, stretch run of the Met Mile. And I think a horse that defined himself now is the top horse in training in 2014. Really a really nice performance out of the one hole from Palace Malice. About mid-stretch, I had a pick 3 going. I had both of the horses to kick off the first leg, but I would have preferred Golden Sense, obviously, at the odds. Golden Sense, I thought, was in a good spot, but when Palace Malice kicked in, he just proved the best. And as I say, he is very, very, very impressive in this handicap division this year.
Yeah, he really is. He's a major player. That goes as obviously an understatement. But he didn't have the best of trips either in the Metropolitan Handicap. He was kind of stuck in behind horses down toward the inside, a little bit California Chrome-like. And then when he finally got that opening under Johnny V, he just accelerated. And that rush that he provided was so sensational. And it's funny because we think about this race. We spent so much time talking about the Belmont, even here this morning. But this race doesn't have to take a back seat to any of the races, and we saw that with so many of those undercard stakes. It was such a great program. And, Palace Malice, a major player. I will say this, though. I will caution just a little bit. People want to go ahead and say that he is now the leader of the division. Maybe so, but when you look back at it, even as impressive as he's been this year, in my opinion, you look back at the horses that he's beaten, and yes, this was a very good field in the Met Mile. It was the toughest assignment that he's had to date. But you look back at before that, and he beat Declan's Warrior, and he beat Normandy Invasion, who is good, but he's not great. He beat Golden Ticket before that. I want to see him do this same thing and prove that he is this good against the likes of Game On Dude and Will Take Charge and Mucho Macho Man and Lee and the horses that have been out there already. Once he does that, then he's the undisputed leader of the division. But I still think he's right up there. He's one of the ones, but this is still a loaded division, and I still think it's wide open.
Yeah, you make a great point. And maybe, whereas I'm a little disappointed about the Travers, maybe the Whitney is going to answer some of those questions. And again, this handicap division we've talked all year is loaded and is going to be a lot of fun. And Palace Malice's performance on Saturday just adds to that intrigue. Let's go to another division now, the Fillies and Mares 4-year-olds and up in the Ogden Phipps. A race that probably we've all been anticipating for about 6 weeks now. And coming down the stretch, it'll be the number 1 Closed Hatches getting it done over the number 6 Princess of Silmar. Long Shot Antipathy will run 3rd. Beholder will run 4th. They're all separated by about 1 3/4 lengths. I liked Closed Hatches coming into this race. I just thought she had maybe a little more seasoning off of those Oaklawn races this season than the other 2 superstars. But obviously, with those 3 in there, Closed Hatches, Princess of Silmar, Beholder, we were all excited. And I think at least the finish lived up to it a little bit. My partner, Steve Bick, yesterday thought maybe we have to look at this race also in the context of a 30-to-1 shot running 3rd and a 25-to-1 shot running 5th. but being right in the mix within a couple of lengths there. So what does that say? But I think the big three are also still lightly raced this year, and hopefully really exciting finish in this race. Hopefully this sets things up for maybe some more encounters among these through the rest of the year, although I don't know how quick Richard Mandel will be to bring Beholder back to the East Coast, but it was certainly a nice performance from the top two.
Yeah, it certainly was, and Closed Hatches was the horse that I really wasn't a big believer in it going into this race. I thought Princess of Stillmar, Beholder were maybe just a notch better than Closed Hatches, but she made a believer out of me because this was a really gutty victory. She had every chance through the stretch to just throw in the towel. Princess of Stillmar didn't make it easy on her. She kept grinding it out on the outside. She ran tremendously well, but Closed Hatches wouldn't be denied. She really showed that heart of a champion that we like to see. For Beholder, yeah, maybe this wasn't her best game going one turn at Belmont Park. She's probably better around two turns. She'll get an opportunity to compete with these horses again, and she'll see them on her home track at Santa Anita later in the year. So all things being equal anyways, we're hoping to see that in the Breeders' Cup distaff. But yeah, Closed Hatches, take nothing away from her. This was an outstanding performance, and as I say, she made a believer out of me.
Yeah, now 8 wins and 11 starts in the career. So that, again, you just need those three to make that division intriguing this year. The various divisions and subdivisions as well are kind of fun this year. And one of the subdivisions, maybe 3-year-old sprinters, Bayern in the Woody Stevens, wanted to take a look at that as well, because that was yet another impressive performance on the card. And I wanted to get your thoughts. We will watch the stretch run. The one Bayern will win, number 12, Top Fortitude, second. Number 11, Social Inclusion, who bypassed the Belmont to run as the even money favorite in the Woody Stevens on Saturday, winds up third. But Bayern in the stretch just ran away and hid from these horses.
Yeah, it was a freakish performance, and he's a horse that not only in the 3-year-old sprint division, but I think as we get with 3-year-olds running against older horses later in the year is going to be a very interesting horse because he's obviously ultra talented. All you have to do is look back to his Santa Anita allowance win last February, or this past February, and take a look at that one where he won by 15 lengths. If you can win by 15 lengths, you're a pretty special horse, especially at Santa Anita. So he's special. We knew he was special for a long time, but now he's shown that he can be brilliant when he's sprinting. And I think anywhere from 6 furlongs to a mile, Bayern is going to be extremely dangerous in so many of these races. Maybe we see him in the, a race that against older horses later in the year, a sprint race, and he starts to prove that this 3-year-old crop is actually pretty good. Yeah, he's tough. This was a really, really good race, and I'm looking forward to seeing him come back later in the year.
Yeah, he was very impressive. And some thoughts on any of the other races? I thought Linda Rice made the right move with Kid Cruz. Obviously, that one winning the unlisted, ungraded Easy Goer earlier in the card. Sweet Reason for Leah Giarmati validates the Saratoga win from last year by taking the Acorn. The turf races were intriguing. What were your thoughts on the rest of the card?
Yeah, just the entire day was just absolutely amazing to see 6 Grade 1, 10 stakes races on the same program. I mean, the stakes races started with that Kid Cruz race in race number 2, right?
Yeah.
And then they went all the way through the Belmont. So if you were a fan of racing, I always refer to, the Breeders' Cup days and Derby days as being Christmas with horses. This was Christmas with horses times 10. It was just on another level. And tip your hat to Belmont and to all the folks who are putting this together. I think it was a huge success. The fans loved it. The betting came in. The horses showed up. And this is what our sport's all about. And when you think that racing is dead, you just take a look at the interest that is generated from a horse like California Chrome. And, again, it comes back to marketing and promoting the sport and putting it out there in the right light. If you do it, people will be captured by this particular game. People like horse racing. It's just a matter of getting it out there to them and letting them see how cool it really is and putting it in front of them, and it will work. Trust me, it will work.
Yeah, you talk about Christmas times 10. We interviewed Donna Brothers Wednesday at the breakfast, and I said, the undercard's great too. And she said, yeah, it's like Christmas, and you come downstairs and you've got a new car for Christmas, and then you look under the tree, and there are even more presents under the tree. So that's perfectly put. And it was a great day of racing, a lot of fun. And congratulations to you guys on hitting the numbers you did with the broadcast. Horse Racing Radio Network always does a great job. I saw Clancy running around paddock to winner's circle all afternoon long. So again, hats off to you. If folks want to go catch the archive of some of the interviews you had last week, I saw you also had Victor Espinoza. They can go to the Horse Racing Radio Network website. Mike, as always, we appreciate the visit. We'll talk to you next week.
Seth, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, Mike Penna, Horse Racing Radio Network. We'll take our next break. When we come back, we'll take a little look at Delaware Park for this afternoon with Rich Glazier. We'll probably get some of his thoughts on the Belmont, too. Stay tuned.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Hey race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, and amazing Vegas-style atmosphere. The Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Very happy to be joined now by Rich Glazier from Delaware Park. Good morning, Rich.
Hello, Seth, and hello, everybody in Albany.
Happy to have you on board, and always happy to talk Delaware racing. We've been doing so the past few weeks as you guys have gotten your season started. And we like Delaware, the little midweek stakes races and whatnot. Those are always fun. Rich, folks playing this afternoon, what's the weather look like?
Well, it's Seth, I have a morning ritual. When the morning paper comes around 5:36, I walk out the front. I walk on my grass instead of the driveway to test the turf. And this morning when I went out to get the paper, it was raining and the turf was yielding. And I said, we're in trouble here. But yet it stopped raining and the turf stays yielding and we are on the turf. So right now it's not raining, it's cloudy, and they tell me, because I don't listen to the weather, man, they tell me that there's a chance of thunderstorms, but I say they'll bypass Delaware Park and we'll be on the turf today.
I like that. The optimism is always a big key factor for horse players, so we'll keep that in mind. You got a few to look at today, and then as I said before the break, we'll get some of your opinions on the Belmont Stakes weekend as well, but let's take a look at Delaware Park for this afternoon. First race you're going to look at is, in fact, on the turf. The fourth race today is a maiden claimer, $25,000 to $30,000, 3-year-olds and up, 1.70 on the grass. What were your thoughts?
Well, first of all, our second race is on the turf, and I always, when I come on your show, Seth, I always just pick the turf races. But that second race today is for the amateur lady jockeys, and I don't have anything against them. But, of course, I could make a pick and then blame it on the ride, see? But I just think I'll let that race go. So moving to the fourth race on the turf, I like the number 7, King's Giant. Got a lot of things going for him. First of all, He's by Giants Causeway. He's trained by the Hall of Famer Jonathan Shepard. I think I remember you telling me last year that you were a big Shepard fan also.
You got it.
Well, that's because guys with white beards think alike. Is that?
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, he's coming out of a key race, that last race in February, Gulfstream. 3 horses have come out of that race to win. The jockey Shepard's using is Alex Cintron. He was the leading jockey here last year, and he's off to a pretty good start this year. Looks like Jonathan was a little disappointed in that last race in February, gave him a little time off, and now he's coming back in a claiming race. So, you know, the biggest drop in racing, they say, is from maiden special to maiden claimer. So I think Jonathan's looking for the right spot. He also, I'm sure you know as a Shepard fan, especially here at Delaware, he gets very streaky. You know, he might go 0 for 11, and all of a sudden, every race, mostly turf, Jonathan wins. So he had a couple wins last week. I think he's getting ready to get on one of his hot streaks. So King's Giant is my play in the 4th race.
I also like to see him reach out to one of the top jockeys in a meet. And picking Cintron to me says the horse may be well met today as well. So, yeah, you're on board with me with the Shepard horse.
That's a very good point because Jonathan, I think he's very loyal to the people that come and work horses for him. And sometimes they're not the biggest name jockeys. And I always used to wonder back in the days he would use some of the lesser-known jockeys, and I would always wonder how many races would he win.
Yeah.
If he, you know, one time he used Ramon Dominguez on a horse, and Ramon won by about 5. And after the race, he said to me, "He's quite good, isn't he?" And I thought, "Where you been, Jonathan?" You know, but he still gets the job done no matter who he uses, though.
Yeah, absolutely. But as I say, when he does reach out to these guys, I like that even better. 5th race today at Delaware Park, maiden special weight event. These are 3-year-old and up, 3-year-olds and up going 5.5. Your thoughts on the 5th?
Yeah, usually I only pick the turf races, and after turf races, I like 2-year-old maiden races, but we didn't have one today, so we'll go to this maiden special weight, and it's a pretty salty group in here, and I'm really doing something I don't usually do. I know when you talk to John Kern, our announcer, he loves that root the sprint angle. I hate that angle, but Run with Honor, number 2, it's kind of a technical route to sprint because it was on the turf last time he was, so I like the turf, the dirt angle. I just not crazy about a horse cutting back in distance. But Run with Honor really hadn't been out since February, so it's been a while. He's under the care of Larry Jones, who's back here after a couple years not being at Delaware Park. And not only is Larry back, I'm sure you're all aware he was in an injury, but he's back. He was in the paddock last week.
Oh, nice.
He was in the winner's circle when he won a race, and boy, was it good to see him. And he looks good, and I think he's ready to roll now. So he's had this horse, and came up from Fairgrounds. He's worked a few times at Delaware Park. I think the horse is ready to go and should do the job here. You know, you always worry when there's a lot of first-time starters, which there isn't here. But another fact with a Run with Honor, it's a 4-year-old running against mostly 3-year-olds. I think that's the advantage too. And Kerwin Clark, who Larry brought with him to be his jockey here at Delaware, will do the riding.
And that's great to hear that he is back out on the track, because it was a fairly serious injury. Yeah. So certainly wish him well and continued recovery. But the horse you picked, I'm another one. I do like the cutback angle going 2 turns to 1 turn. But something else that jumps off to me all spring long, particularly when we go back to Keeneland. The horses shipping in from Fairgrounds this spring to various venues have attracted my attention. And so this one coming in off a last race at Fairgrounds attracts my attention. Typically this time of year, I like Oaklawn shippers. They haven't held up quite as well this year as in previous years. But people we've talked to on the show for probably the past 3 weeks have also pointed out that this year the Tampa shippers are doing very well.
Yeah, but I agree with you. Fairgrounds shippers do well wherever they go. I think the reason we're not seeing as many Oaklawn shippers is we changed racing secretaries. Pat Pope was the racing secretary for years here. He's also the racing secretary at Oaklawn.
Right.
So a lot of the horsemen followed him from Oaklawn. Now this year we still have some of those, but not as many as others. But for the last 3 or 4 years, Oaklawn was the number one ship in the, early in the meet. It was the horses coming from Oaklawn that did better. This year we're seeing more Tampa shippers because we have more Tampa shippers here.
Yeah, and as I say, that seems to be the consensus over the past few weeks from folks we've talked to, the Tampa shippers, and as I say, I noted the fairground shippers. My Oaklawn shippers haven't been holding up, but we'll see what happens this afternoon with that fairground shipper. Now we'll go out to the 7th race today. 7th is a allowance non-winners of one other than fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. Again, we're back on the grass at 1.70 miles.
Yeah, and the turf right now is listed yielding, but if it doesn't rain, I think it would be upgraded to good. And I could have gone with a lot of different ways in here, Seth, but I think I'm going to go for a price, and I'm going to take the 8. It's My Time. It's My Time is by Green Desert, who's by Danzig, so a nice family. And this horse is making his first start in North America. But the interesting thing, he hasn't really run on the turf since 2013. He ran on the synthetics in Great Britain all last year. And actually that was in 13 too, the latter part of 13. So he hasn't been on the turf for quite a while. He's now comes here for Niall Seville. Xavier Perez is the rider. He won a stakes race, one of those midweek stake races you talked about here last week. So he's using the top jockey. He's been working very nice at the Fairhill Training Center, which is probably only about 10, 15 miles away from Delaware Park. So I just think... I'm going to take a shot with It's My Time. I always like those European horses, and maybe I can get a price here with this one.
I'm with you on the European shippers. They can even be second stringers, and they seem to have an edge over ours. This one's first-time Lasix today, too, so that's an interesting angle. Rich, before we let you go, I want to talk a little bit about the weekend, get some of your thoughts. We'll do that with all the guests this week. Obviously, there was a shot at the Triple Crown on the line on Saturday. It wasn't to be about mid-stretch. I thought California Chrome stood a good chance, but just hung a little bit. But it was a nice performance by Tonalist, the winner, to get it up just head over Commissioner. What were your thoughts on the Belmont Stakes?
Well, like everybody in the game that works in this industry, we were all rooting for California Chrome. You know, for a while there, I think some of us were snobby, like, well, this horse really isn't good enough to be a Triple Crown winner. But now, it's enough already. It's time to get a Triple Crown winner. And the trainer was great, and the connections until that little outburst were great. And everybody was rooting for him. And, you know, I think most handicappers I talked to, they're serious handicappers, all said the same thing. We want him to win, but we're betting against him. And that's exactly what I did. I threw him in my exactas and tries, but I just thought maybe the 1.5 miles would get him. And unlike some of the other pundits, I don't think that was a bad ride by Victor. I don't know what you think, but I thought he was in position to win, but he just flattened out a little at the end. But all credit to Tonalist. He was wide the whole way. So he ran even more than 1.5 miles, and he still had the guts to run down Commissioner. So it was an exciting race, and you know, it would have been nice to have that Triple Crown winner, but I don't think anybody can complain about it. And I saw the owner on Good Morning American today, and he retracted and apologized. So that's good.
That's what we heard, and good for him, because I said yesterday on the show, if he issues a mea culpa today, I'll give him a break. But I said I don't know whether that's his personality, and sure enough, yesterday he doubled down. But if he's issued the mea culpa today, we'll give him a pass, because obviously I'm sure that was incredibly disappointing.
When he was saying that on television, I kept yelling at the television, "Shut up, shut up!" You know, you've been so classy the whole time.
Yeah, you know? And if you watched, I think the wife sitting behind him was saying the same thing.
Well, she was on Good Morning America too, so you know, it's funny. I was listening to Howard Stern. My wife said, "You might want to turn on Good Morning America." You know.
Well, again, hats off to him for doing that, though. Rich, before we let you go, any other thoughts on the weekend? Palace, Malice, very impressive. Bayern, very impressive. Closed hatches. That matchup turned out to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to the horses and the Phipps coming back into our Delaware Handicap July 12th. I know Princess of Silmar has had this race, our race on her radar, so hopefully we can get maybe a rematch in there. But it was great racing, and you know, I'm sure you were the same as me. Our handle went through the roof. It's nice to have a few of these slow days now. Take it easy, you know.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I said on the show earlier and yesterday, I eventually got out of the Belmont parking lot at 10:15, got home at 2 o'clock. So yeah, couple of easy days now. You get a little nap in.
Just relax and bet a few races at Delaware Park today and take it easy.
That's exactly the game plan. We'll be looking grass at Delaware this afternoon. Rich, as always, we appreciate the visit. You're in the 3-man rotation, so we'll catch up with you again in 3 weeks. But again, good luck this afternoon.
All right, good luck to all you and your viewers.
Thanks a lot. Rich Glazier from Delaware Park. We will take a very quick break and then come back, have a couple minutes left to say goodbye. Stay tuned.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at CapitalOTB.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Wagering at CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Welcome back. Just a minute or so left to wrap up the show, but I did want to alert you. Television ratings, very good. I mean, handle numbers, we talked about that yesterday on Loose on the Lead. Handle numbers, really excellent, and they jumped up significantly. The television, the overnight ratings, they had a 12.9. That was the second highest all-time rating for a Belmont Stakes broadcast. The top rating was 15.9 for 2004 Smarty Jones, but this was the second best. They had a 29 share, and if you don't know television, ratings is the number, the percentage of televisions overall. The share is the number of televisions that are turned on at the time. I mean, obviously a lot of people are out now watching television, but of the televisions that were turned on, 29%. So that's, you know, you're getting close to 1 in every 3 televisions that was on Saturday afternoon was tuned to the Belmont Stakes. Really nice. And comparatively speaking, again, the Belmont rating, 12.9. The hockey game that followed the Belmont Stakes, 4.6. Stanley Cup Final. So the Belmont clearly outdid the hockey game. So television ratings, very, very good. Good numbers. Again, the negative, there was a parking situation afterwards and the trains and whatnot, but otherwise, you know, we'll have to see what NYRA, if they have some kind of comment on that over the next couple of days. But otherwise, the day of racing, very, very good with all the numbers and whatnot. All right, I'm going to wrap things up for Racing Across America for this Monday morning as we kick off a week of post-Triple Crown Belmont Stakes conversation, as well as hitting on, obviously, our regulars at the various other tracks as well. I'm Seth Merrow. We're here every Monday through Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. A little bit earlier, handicapper support. Anthony Mormino and I took a look at Finger Lakes and Parks. Hopefully, we gave out some good information, so enjoy all the racing on the network this afternoon. Let's all cash a few tickets, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.